Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, FY 2021 Project Safe Neighborhoods National Training and Technical Assistance Program, hosted by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. At this time, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Kate Mcnamee, Senior Policy Advisor with the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Kate?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the 2021 Project Safe Neighborhoods National Training and Technical Assistance Program. As Daryl said, my name is Kate Mcnamee, and I oversee the PSN TTA program as a Senior Policy Advisor within the Bureau of Justice Assistance. So for those of you who are new to Project Safe Neighborhoods, I will describe the program's purpose, goals, and objectives, and then I will provide an overview of the PSN Training and Technical Assistance Program's objectives as well. I will then confirm who is eligible to apply and go over the new application submission requirements for 2021 and share those resources that should help you through the process. So PSN has played a major role in DOJ's crime reduction efforts going back to 2001. It has spanned 4 presidential administrations and has maintained the same objective, and that's creating and fostering safer neighborhoods through partnerships of state, local, tribal, and federal law enforcement with the communities they serve. It is national in scope and with a presence in all 94 federal judicial districts. And each district must establish a PSN team composed of key players at the federal, state, and local organizations and agencies to focus and coordinate their violence reduction strategy and activities. The U.S. Attorney is typically the convener of the team and will coordinate the process to establish a violence reduction strategic plan for the district that reflects the roles and priorities of all team members. PSN grant resources, overseen by a separate fiscal agent for the district, are used to support the objectives of the PSN team's violence reduction strategy. So the PSN TTA program is designed to support the development of core violence reduction capacities and strategies among the PSN team organizations, I should say. As PSN is national in scope, so is the TTA program, which must provide support to all 94 U.S. Attorney districts as they identify needs for best practices and training on emergent topics important to the district's crime reduction efforts. The TTA program also provides opportunities for peer-to-peer learning among districts so that they can leverage each other's innovations and learn from each other's challenges. It also provides districts with access to subject matter experts to support their strategies and troubleshoot their crime reduction approaches, as well as key community engagement, policing, crime analysis, and prosecution strategies that they should consider. Through the current solicitation for proposals, BJA is seeking to establish one cooperative agreement with a TTA provider to develop and deliver TTA to PSN teams and their current or prospective partners as needed to support the implementation of their crime reduction goals. The provider will assist all 94 PSN teams to achieve the goals of their PSN strategic plan for violence reduction. The goals of this TTA program are to create a team or consortium of expert organizations and individuals to support strategic plan development by the PSN teams. The provider will work with the USAOs, BJA, and by that I mean the United States Attorney's Offices, BJA, and the Executive Office for United States Attorneys to support the implementation of the PSN strategies in partnership with the communities they serve. They will help to establish strategic messaging related to their efforts, and that will be a central goal, including measuring the impact of outreach efforts. So they will support the PSN team members and partners in the effective use of intelligence and data to identify high crime areas, as well as individuals at risk of violent crime perpetration or victimization, and identify opportunities to prevent further violence. And they will also support PSN team members and partners' violent crime prevention efforts, with particular emphasis on the community violence intervention approaches and initiatives. Objectives include providing support to PSN teams to develop each strategic plan, support PSN teams in their efforts to implement at least one evidence-based strategy to address their community's most pressing violent crime issue and build community trust, as well as to have regular contact and build relationships with PSN coordinators and partners in each of the 94 PSN districts. Since this is a national level program, the successful applicant will need a very solid, well-organized management structure and implementation plan to ensure that all districts receive the support that they need. Eligible applicants, first and foremost, must have experience delivering training and technical assistance on a national level. Organizations allowed to apply, it's quite broad. It includes for-profits, tribal organizations, nonprofit, with or without 501c3 status, and public or private institutions of higher education. All recipients and subrecipients, including any for-profit organization, must forego any profit or management fee, and that is a BJA-wide policy. Our TTA programs require specific deliverables, including periodic reports to BJA, establishment of strategic plans for all operational PSN teams, meetings, workshops, and other educational sessions at the district, regional, or national level, audience-wise, publications, web-based curricula and resources, and other disseminated materials related to best practices in crime reduction and community trust building, and a platform for resources, outreach materials, information sharing, and dissemination. The envisioned TTA program will be divided into 3 areas of responsibility for TTA development and delivery: strategic planning, performance measurement, and research support, law enforcement and prosecution-focused strategies, and victim witness support and engagement. The first area of responsibility will entail the development of a strategic plan for all operational PSN teams, as well as assessments of their capacity to implement the plan's elements and the identification of opportunities for training and technical assistance. They will also be charged with the delivery of an annual training on strategic violence reduction, as well as guidance and materials related to evaluating the impact of community messaging and outreach efforts. They will also be expected to develop reports and other outreach materials to communicate practical information about effective strategies to all PSN teams. This area of responsibility will include the development of assessments that measure all partners' capacities for key violent crime reduction activities in the policing and prosecution areas. It should also include opportunities for peer-to-peer learning among different PSN teams and districts, workshops, meetings, webinars about central evidence-based policing and prosecution issues and approaches, support for information for districts engaged in strategic messaging, community outreach around their policing and prosecution efforts to reduce violent crime and to further promote transparency, as well as publications related to the effective public safety strategies for police and prosecution agencies, as we know them from data and research. The third area of victim witness support is key and should focus on increasing districts' capacity to respond and mitigate the effects of witness intimidation and community trauma around violent crime response. The community is a key player in PSN, so addressing these issues are paramount to a successful PSN strategy. The provider must have the capacity to perform trauma-informed gaps and needs assessments for districts. They'll be expected to develop training on retaliatory violence and victim witness intimidation for PSN teams. They should also identify emerging trends, practices, and programs that increase victim witness and broader community trust in the PSN team's efforts to reduce violence, and develop materials and curricula for system actors to more effectively work with victims and witnesses to violent crime. This year, we have a new grant system and a new two-step application process. This means you will have two deadlines to keep in mind. The first is a grants.gov deadline to submit your SF424 and lobbying disclosure form. And the second, applicants submit the full application into Just Grants. Both of these steps are required, and there is further guidance available in the solicitation on the process. We highly recommend reviewing the DOJ application submission checklist, which goes over how to prepare to apply, gaining access to Just Grants, and completing your application. Now, these are important dates to remember. We released the solicitation on May 21st, and the grants.gov deadline for your SF424 and lobbying disclosures is June 22nd. The Just Grants submission deadline for your full application and attachments is July 6th, 2021. I realize many of you, most of you, are new to Just Grants, and the intent of this new system, launched last October, was to streamline the grant award and management process. And it was also intended to enable users to have new ways to manage their information in our systems. One important enhancement that I want to flag is the ability to use a web-based budget detail worksheet that establishes a shared structure and narrative for all of DOJ, and this will lead to a streamlined validation process that helps clear budgets more quickly. There are many tools and primers available on different aspects of Just Grants on the OJP website, including the e-learning videos listed here. Again, I highly recommend you review these materials as soon as possible, as they will have many of the answers to your Just Grants questions. The new systems, all these systems have their challenges, and should you run into any trouble, there is support available, both on the website with the checklists and such, and the e-learning tools, but also live support. So please go to justgrants.usdoj.gov if you run into any issues and need guidance. To submit the application in Just Grants, you will identify the forms needed to support your application. You'll complete the budget form, complete the application materials, including the certification of the accuracy of captured information, and then press the Submit button. And Just Grants will include the new web-based budget form. Indirect cost rate agreements should be uploaded as an attachment, as should the financial management and system and internal controls questionnaire and the executive compensation disclosure. Again, training is available on this particular topic at the captioned link above. So here is my contact information if you have any questions about the PSN program generally, or if you need assistance navigating any of the resources that I've pointed out to you today. And your first stop for technical assistance for your application should be the Ojp Response Center, which is also where you should reach out to document any technical difficulties you have with the submission process. I would also highly recommend that you subscribe to Ojp's newsletters to receive notifications of new funding opportunities and updates on the application process. And these are resources that you should find useful as you put your application together. I would definitely recommend looking at all of them, but the PSN TTA website for the current program is available and public, so you can take a look and see how we have been approaching TTA with sites thus far. Finally, we have a lot of ways for you to stay connected with us, to receive the latest funding information and updates on our priorities and plans, just grants alerts and alike. So please do follow us on social media and check our website regularly. And please do keep this information handy as you put together your applications and keep the Justice Response Center informed, again, about any technical issues you might encounter during the submission process. So now I will turn it back to Daryl so that we can answer your questions. Daryl?
Thanks, Kate. Just a reminder before we get into the Q&A portion that the recording, PowerPoint, and transcript for today's webinar will be posted to the BJA website within about 5 to 10 business days. So definitely something to check out if you need to go back and reference anything that was spoken to or referenced today. If you do have a question, if you want to go to the bottom right-hand side of your screen, click the 3 dots, enter your question in the Q&A. I'm sure Kate would be glad to answer it. Currently nothing in the queue at this time, Kate, but we can hang on a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to hang on.
And just to reiterate as well, this 3 entities for assistance if you do need it, and grants.gov for the 2 forms, just grants for the full application, and anything related programmatically to the solicitation itself. Ojp Response Center is a wonderful resource. Nothing currently in the queue at this time. If you do, and actually one has come in. What is a PSN district? Can you identify that?
A PSN district, so the U.S. Attorney's offices are in every federal judicial district, and there are 94 of them. So you can learn more about the U.S. Attorney's offices by visiting the DOJ website, the EOUSA website, and also the PSN TTA website. We have a handy map up there of districts. And we provide support to the PSN teams that are coordinated by each U.S. attorney in the 94 districts. I hope that answers the question. It can be, some states are one district, such as Colorado or Massachusetts, and some states, because of population or geographic diversity, have more than one district, such as Florida has 3 districts within its boundaries. So that's why it's not a one-to-one state thing. We have 94 districts because some states have more than one district, more than one U.S. attorney.
See, like another question coming in. Has this process been successful in working with prosecutors?
The answer is, it depends on your definition of success, but in my estimation, yes. Prosecutors at the local level are often working very closely and should be working very closely with U.S. attorneys' offices to figure out what kind of cases should be federally prosecuted versus locally prosecuted. So prosecutors, local prosecutors, and state prosecutors are very important partners in any PSN team. And we do have resources developed under the current PSN TTA program with prosecutors as the audience in mind.
Nothing new at this time in the queue. If you do have a question, please go ahead and insert that. We can go ahead and answer that for you. Just referencing again on here, the recommended resources. The bottom link here is the PSN TTA website. breadth of information on the program itself that you can access from psntta.org. Okay, that may be it for today. Kate, anything in closing, or do you want to hang on a little bit?
I'm going to give it 30 more seconds. You guys shouldn't let me off this easy. So.
There we go. How does this process evaluate the substantive need to evaluate why people cause crime according to their health and welfare status? Does it?
I'm not sure exactly what the question is. Is this a question? If this is a question in relation to how do we measure success or figure out or consider how social, economic, health disparities, et cetera, contribute to crime, I think that there's a very well-developed body of research that does a very deep dive into what makes someone more likely to engage in criminal behavior, including those elements. That's why prevention is a big part of PSN, and trying to focus on the people and places that are particularly affected by violent crime, and figuring out what those crime drivers are. Many PSN sites do engage in community support and outreach, especially around youth engagement, healthy relationships, ensuring better decision making, et cetera, et cetera. It's a pretty complicated question. I hope I've answered it, but if you need clarification or if I didn't, please re-enter in the chat box. Daryl will do 30 more seconds, give folks a chance.
Certainly. And for any of the links that were mentioned in the slides today, our host has inserted those into the chat feature. So if you do need to hyperlink, copy and paste those, you can do so from there for easy reference and linking. Another question did come in, Kate. Is there a training that will be available for the technical part of these grants? For example, a certain person's responsibility under this PSN grant program will be to draw funds. Will that be in the Just Grants website? And will there be a training provided for that?
I think this is referencing the PSN grant program, not the PSN technical assistance program, but I'm definitely game to answer. The Ogp Financial Guide is usually your first stop with how to proceed with your budget and drawdowns and the like. There should certainly be user training for drawdown of funds. If you're working with a fiscal agent as a PSN subaward recipient, you'll be working with that fiscal agent to draw down the funds, and then the fiscal agent for the PSN district will be working with Just Grants and the associated financial systems to draw down their award funding. So if you need any assistance with a grant that you currently have for PSN, then please contact me, shoot me an email in terms of drawdown of funds, and I can connect you with the right people to get you the information that you need and troubleshoot anything that you're experiencing.
Is there a way to incorporate how HIPAA laws complicate decisions for rehabilitative and police matters?
This is a tough issue. It's one that we work with often in terms of information sharing between social service providers, public health providers, and police agencies, because we recognize the need for those cross-sector collaborations, and it's impossible to do without data sharing, and HIPAA is certainly something that we contend with. So we have provided that kind of specific training and technical assistance about how you manage that around the guardrails of HIPAA. So if there is a specific question or issue being grappled with in a PSN district regarding information sharing and HIPAA, please reach out to me and I can assist you with some assistance in that regard and perhaps some guidance and some subject matter expert support.
Somebody wanted me to put the slide up with your contact information. There's Kate's information right there. It's also in the chat if you need to cut and paste that. Any other questions? Please do enter that in. Seems to be all that's in the queue at this time.
Okay. Well, everyone has my contact information for any more PSN specific questions. I am always here to answer those. And again, if you have any technical issues, please report those to the Ojp Response Center. Since this is the first year of Just Grants, we want to be sure that we capture any technical issues that you experienced and can ensure a fair and open competition in spite of those technical issues. So please do keep in touch and keep us informed if you run into any problems.
So on behalf of the Bureau of Justice Assistance and our panelists, we want to thank you for joining today's webinar. This will end today's presentation.
Thank you, Daryl.